Investments are usually made to achieve long-term goals, like funding your retirement, and they use financial products with the expectation they will achieve greater returns than cash over that long-term period. Now, they differ to bank accounts in that they carry a risk that your capital could actually fall in value. Now, here's where we start to get a bit more technical, but I will try and keep to plain English as much as possible. So, with investing, I think it's helpful to think about this in terms of layers. So you've got the outer layer where you have an investment vehicle, and this is your access point to investing. And then within this, then you have the actual investments that you hold. Now, typical investment vehicles would be things like stocks and shares ISAs, things like investment bonds and general investment accounts and pensions. Each of these will allow you to hold different types of investments within them. And also each of these will then be subject to their own specific rules around tax treatments. And it's really important to understand all of this because this helps you to make sure that you choose to hold your investments in the right vehicle for your needs and your goals. Now, through these investment vehicles, you then come to the next layer, and you can then choose how you want to invest. So, for example, in equities, which are effectively shares in listed companies, or you can invest in fixed interest, which are loans to listed companies, or you can invest in property or bonds and all sorts of different things like this. Now, different types of asset classes typically carry different levels of investment risk. And investment risk is simply how likely you are to lose your money. And if you remember what we said before, the greater the potential gain, the greater the risk along the way. Now, there is a traditional risk hierarchy when it comes to investments. And obviously, this is just a general rule of thumb. And there are lots of other individual factors which need to be carefully considered in any scenario. But generally speaking, cash is considered to be the lowest risk with the lowest potential return. Then if we move along to the next level, we've got fixed interest, which can often include things like government and company debt. And in this case, the reward can be a little higher than typical cash returns, but so can the risk. Now, following on in third place, we have property. And this could be direct property purchase or holding shares in multiple properties via a pooled investment fund. Now, again, the risk is higher. For example, there may be void periods when no rent is received, or property values may fall, or even times when a property cannot be sold when funds are needed. However, the hope would be that the returns exceed those that you could expect from fixed interest or from cash. And then sitting at the top of the traditional risk scale are equities. And these are shares in companies which can offer huge returns, but ultimately at the risk of times when your investment could fall in value and sometimes complete capital loss. So if we think back to the layers analogy again, and we delve a layer deeper, and within each of these different asset classes, there will be a further tier in terms of the individual shares or the individual properties or companies. And as you can imagine, each of these carry their own level of risk. So what's the key takeaway here? An investment is a broad term which can be used for all sorts of different ways of trying to grow your money. Now, investments offer the potential for greater returns than standard bank accounts do, but they carry far greater levels of risk and so are typically more suitable for long-term objectives. The likelihood is that you'll be wanting both savings and investments. It's always best to make sure you've got an emergency rainy day fund in place before you start investing. Because as we've learned, investing is for the long term, and you don't want to be taking money out of your investment funds too soon if you can avoid it. You may also want different sorts of investments for different purposes or different goals. For example, if you're approaching retirement, you're likely to want to access your investments sooner, and you'll want a different approach, say, compared to someone who's in their 40s who may not yet retire for another 20 to 30 years. Now, both the investment vehicle and the underlying investments therein will likely look somewhat different for these two different scenarios. Well, in our effort to keep this bite-sized and digestible, we'll wrap this up here. But you can find out more about how to invest in another one of our videos.